to better solidify themselves here in the LEC competition. The cool thing about Splyce is that we're seeing an evolution of them from last split, where their mid-game decision-making seems a lot more cleaner. Xerxes is still on form, and he's going to be going up against the new addition to Schalke in Trick, who, according to Upset, provides more stability to the team, more leadership to the team, and a little bit more control. But when we look back at Schalke's games last week, they were a little all over the place. Some of their decisions were haphazard. They ended up just giving a free Baron away to the likes of XL. So they want to clean that up this week, and what better way to do that than going up against Splyce, who had a one dominant loss versus one dominant win.
Yeah, I don't think you really count G2 in the ratings at the moment. Splyce looked strong in their win, and we'll see if they can continue that form today. Schalke already removing the Sona, Ryze and Xayah taken away by Splyce, and Yuumi will be splatted as the cat is off the menu.
So a lot of bot lane focus, kind of unsurprisingly, we're seeing from both these teams, Copy and Upset, two very talented AD carries that we have here. I'm curious as to whether Schalke will look to ban away Norscaren's Rakan, one of his more preferred champions, and something that he can have his better performances on. Splyce actually targeting out Trick, want to take away that early game jungler, but we notice that Sejuani is still up and available, something that we know both junglers are more than happy to play, but with the likes of Sylas still available, you would imagine that Splyce want to just try and grab that one for themselves very early on.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. Splyce will take the Sejuani instead of the Sylas, so that is open actually for Schalke if they want it on the next rotation. Alongside that, what are you looking? I mean, even Aurelia is still on the cards here if someone wants to pick it up.
Well, I think that Sylas is your priority right now. It is something that Schalke is hovering, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for bearing with us. There we are. Our draft has been fully updated. The Skarner immediately going to be the answer from the side of Schalke, so already a bit of pick potential.
Yeah, and already we see both the junglers who have been so strong in week one getting their picks in early, prioritized in the draft. I'm looking forward to that.
So now I wonder if that Aurelia that you mentioned will come out from the side of Splyce. It is something that I think synergizes very well with the Sejuani, but Camille is the other champion that we have to take into consideration. But never mind, we don't have to consider it anymore. The Aurelia that you predicted, you talked about Medic, is going to be locked in from the side of Splyce.
Tahm Kench as well. Ooh. That's more melee. That's the thing with Sejuani. You always have to look at how many melee champions she has on her side. True. Because of that passive, because you can get those stacks up even quicker. Schalke hovering over Ahri, don't expect that to be the pick. But alongside a Sylas and a Skarner, maybe something like a Sivir would work out well.
Potentially.
I'll be honest with it.
All right. Well, something that Schalke did play a lot of last week was Vayne. Upset mentioned that when he sees a lot of tanks on the opposition, in particular the Sejuani and the Tahm Kench, he does like to play it. But you know what, Medic, you're just the god of predictions today. Like, you're getting all the predictions right on the LEC predictions. 2 out of 3. That's still good. But also you're predicting all these champions. And Schalke, they're directing their bans now towards the bottom half of the map. Going to take Draven off the board. They may look to take away something like the Lucian if they're afraid of it. With Xayah already banned off, you're kind of already limited down in the number of AD carries that are available to you.
Yep. And with the Akali taken away, there's some of the solo laners removed from Schalke as well. Odawamne and Chachi in the top lane yet to lock in their champions you have to expect. And this battle that's been going on for quite a long time. I believe Chachi actually has the historical record over Odawamne. 21 wins to only 18 from Odawamne. Do I have that the wrong way around? I do. No, Chachi has the record. You're right. I'm right.
Pretty sure Odawamne has the record.
No, Chachi is 21 wins versus Odawamne.
All right, fair enough.
My stats team has confirmed it.
Fair enough. Well, maintaining with the bot lane bans, Schalke going to take Varus off the board. Right now, it looks like Splyce may be looking at something like the Ezreal or the Kai'Sa. We do know that Kai'Sa can do very well up against the Sivir later on, and often has an okay laning phase, even though she cannot often gain priority. I'm curious as to what direction Splyce will go for in terms of a defensive blind top laner, because note that right now they don't have that much AP damage. They do have a little bit from the Sejuani, and if they go Kai'Sa, they're actually going to go for the Ashe. Ooh. So we did see this come out from Prey, I believe, this morning. The Ashe Tahm Kench, very safe defensive lane. And then they're going to round things out with the ability power. So the Kennen, very safe up towards the top side. We see it a lot, unsurprisingly. Patch 911 still very strong. And now Schalke, they have a lot of options here. They can either send the Sylas up towards the Kennen. I don't expect that to be the case. I imagine that they're going to draft something a little bit more aggressive into that Kennen in the 1 versus 1. They do still have Jace available. Rumble is something that teams often go for as a safe blind, and it actually looks like that's the direction the Schalke is going to take.
Lock in the Rumble for that final pick. We've seen it played by both these top laners before. Odoamne actually lost on it. No, won on it when they played it last week. So see if he can knock another victory into his scoreboard today. Betty, having a look at these two teams, just explain to me exactly how these teams are aiming to play the game and what their sort of win conditions are.
Well, from Schalke, they have a lot of teamfight tools, especially in the mid game. Notice how they have the Sivir and Rumble, who automatically work very, very well when you start grouping up and looking for those fights. Braum fits into that very naturally as well. And because you have the Sylas, you can steal things like the Cannon ultimate, you can steal away the Ashe ultimate. It's very easy for the side of Schalke to actually just start fights. Meanwhile, for the side of Splyce, they have a lot more skirmishing options. And while there are a couple of team fight tools under their belt, I feel like they're going to be looking for a lot more picks off in a side lane, using things like the Ashe Arrow. They have the Tahm Kench ultimate to set up flanks onto side laners, and I think they're going to be trying to look for these 2v2, 3v3 skirmishes off the back of this Aurelia.
It makes a lot of sense. Splyce and Schalke really fighting to solidify themselves in the league in this summer split, you have to feel. Both teams off to good starts overall, but want to show us just a little bit more today, you have to feel. Want to prove that they're fighting for that 4th spot, maybe even challenging for the podium.
Yeah, we'll see if they're able to do it. Splyce versus Schalke, going to be our 4th game of the day. Expecting it to be an exciting one. Let's get into it.
On to Summoner's Rift once again we go, bravely treading forth into a world of unknown, Bedius. At the moment, Xerxes doesn't know that Ignar and Odoamne and Upset all waiting in that bush, but he's not going to overstep a ward.
So they know Cersei is there because they have that ward.
This is the best sort of casting.
Ooh. Sorry, actually,
happens,
the best kind of team casting, which I still don't think has been done, is when casters add sound effects to a team fight.
Oh,
now,
it has been done.
We're definitely not doing it
with the
Oh yes, that's true. That's very, very true. One day I'd love to do it, but we're not going to do it today.
You add one in. You add one in as we go along. I'm ready for it.
Alright, anyway, let's have a look. We always like to check on some of the runes, see if there's anything crazy coming out. Phase Rush on the Cannon, when you're playing against a ranged matchup, or a matchup rather, that you don't get as much free harass in, you go for something that's a little bit more teamfight based. So the Phase Rush, once you run in with your little Lightning Rush and you proc your abilities, you have all that more mobility, which means it's easier to get onto the backline and use that big AoE ulti to start dealing the deeps. Meanwhile for Abadage, also going for the Electrocute on the side of Sylas. This is a little unconventional. We see a wide array of rune choices on the Sylas, ranging from Aftershock, sometimes we see Conqueror, sometimes we see Fleet Footwork, but by going for Electrocute, definitely suggests that he wants a little bit more burst damage, wants to have that little bit more all-in potential, and when you have things like the Skarner and the Sylas, I do think that it adds that extra bit of early game power in the 2 versus 2.
And speaking of tricking the jungle as well, you have to look at his first week performance on this Schalke team. Was brought in to replace Memento and has had a pretty strong showing so far for the Schalke team. Ended up with just a very strong way of playing the early game, in my opinion. On the Elise, he was able to get some really good ganks off. Actually, he was trying to gank his former teammate Expect and tried to get Schalke ahead.
So I think that while he was very proactive in terms of the early game, I do think that he wasn't able to convert that into insurmountable leads for the side of Schalke. It did help them gain a lot of early game control, and I'm excited to see how he matches up against the likes of Xerxes, who has managed to convert a lot of early game ganks into early game leads. His Elise last week was instrumental in allowing Splyce to really dominate the early game, and I think that it's been very interesting to see his jungle, his growth as a jungler over the last few years.
It definitely has, and although Xerxes' stats here might not look as impactful as Trix, you have to remember one of those games was against G2.
That's true.
So your jungle game isn't going to look too strong.
And it's funny because in the G2 game he went like 0-5-1 on Rek'Sai, whereas in the Elise game he was like 7-0-5. So you can see how one game has skewed the other one ever so slightly, whereas Trick has found a little bit more consistency in his first week. and we'll see if he can find it once again. So where could Trick look for in the early game? When you're on a Skarner, typically you want to get to that level 6 mark as early as possible, because that little stinger thing on your back is really where a lot of your power and gank potential comes from. What lanes he could look to play around? I think he doesn't have a huge amount of options. Irelia would be one of the easiest, I would imagine, given that she is a melee champion, has to often extend herself a little bit further than some of the other matchups would. And when you kind of look at bot lane, Tahm Kench can be a very challenging lane to gank. The Cannon, because of his phase rush as well, and the lightning rush, can also be very difficult to gank. So I actually think Trick doesn't necessarily need to force anything in the early stages. I think that he can focus on farming, focus on vision control, and based on what we see on the map, I think that he's doing a decent job of that so far.
That he is. Stun's going to land on Norskeren in the bottom lane as Ignar puts up the wall. Kobe takes a boomerang to the face and just chunked out a little bit. Do you want to notice there were no cleanses on Splyce at all? Norskeren and Humanoid deciding not to take that summoner spell. So Trick will be able just to catch someone out with that stinger pretty easy. Now Norskeren stepped up here, upset on the chase. The concussive blows is procced, and Kobe is able to dodge away from the fracture, so Splyce escaped, but they do have to burn their summons.
Now, from the side of, you spoke about cleanses. Oh, hang on, bit of an all-in.
If that's an all-in,
I just saw them like kind of standing around each other, and I was like, this looks like a fight to me.
This looks like a fight.
It looks like a dive. Irelia's also moving up from the mid lane, and Trick is going to be forced to take the long way around, which means that Splyce are first to make the play.
Spire gives him movement speed. Can he get there in time to save Odo Amne? Flashes away from Odo. Xerxes caught underneath the tower. The fracture's going to land, and Xerxes might well go down. 1-for-1 trade in the top lane as Trick was able to react.
Yeah, Trick was able to make it in time. You identified the Spire, gave him that extra bit of movement speed to close the gap, and Splyce, they took their time. They wanted to make sure that the play was optimal before committing to the dive, and then that extra bit of time spent investing trying to secure that kill means that it ends up being a 1-for-1 overall. So both teams currently on the board.
And Splyce able to hold on to their summoners though. Chachi and Xerxes still have those flashes, so maybe look for a repeat performance up towards that top lane as Odo Amne has already burnt his teleport. Meanwhile in the mid lane, Abadage just pushing Humanoid back, but we're going to have another look at that top lane play.
So here we see, again, keep your eyes on the minimap. They are aware of where the Irelia is, but Irelia's just trying to stop Silas from getting to the play. Xerxes holds his Q to wait for the flash coming out from the Rumble, but because Trick is able to land his E, he then gets that auto off, and then Xerxes stunned underneath the tower. Because that happened before he got the kill onto Odo Amne, he decided, you know what, it's not worth trying to flash out, so I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to give away my life and be happy with the 1-for-1 for now.
Now, VoD, we're 6 minutes into this game. It's pretty much even between the two of them. Indulge me, let me have a little bit of fun. I want to talk about the isolated deaths that we see from these two top laners. Now, Vizichachi and Odo Amne actually very high up in the isolated death leaderboard, but isolated deaths per game, Vizichachi is miles ahead of everyone else, averaging 1.2 deaths by himself in every single game. Odo Amne is chasing him down with 0.8, but Soaz in the middle, having played 90 games more than either of these guys, and still not topping that leaderboard.
Yeah, so you can see that a point of criticism that has been given to these players over the years is that they often die isolated, but the counterpoint to this is they also find a lot of isolated kills. And that's what's really cool about these players. They're kind of like, they've been playing for such a long time that they're kind of like high risk, high reward players. And so even though their number of isolated deaths are high, notice how many solo kills that they also have. Exactly the same order, similar number of games, and you can see the number of solo kills per game is still very, very high.
But Chachi's the one up there. Half a solo kill per game. He kills half a person every time he jumps onto the summoner's rift.
Or maybe every 2 games he gets a solo kill. Maybe that's what that means.
Which one of us is the doctor here? Emotionally, they're dead. Physically, they're still on the rift.
But yeah, that's what we thought was really cool about these two top laners. They've been playing against each other for a very long time, and they both play in a very similar way.
That they do. Abadage and Humanoid going at it in the mid lane. Not too much to speak about, but I do want to talk a little bit about Humanoid's itemization choices here. Negatron Cloak being picked up by him, and Xerxes comes in, has the level 6. Abadage is going to flash away. The suppression lands as well. Abadage, the Ignite is ticking, but he will survive, and Trick is able to get underneath the tower as well. So in the end, neither team actually getting too much. Humanoid was looking for the flash there, but couldn't quite follow up.
Humanoid playing that extremely well. It was just unfortunate for him that Trick was closer to the play than Xerxes was. Otherwise, that could have very likely resulted in a kill going over to Abadage. Ultimately, everyone walks away with their lives. Everyone is very happy. And note how Abadage still has his teleport. So while Humanoid doesn't get that kill, he's now forced back to base. Abadage can go base, spend his money, and already get back into the lane. So he can push that wave out, then join up with his jungler, and maybe look for a bit of deep vision themselves.
And it's both the junglers going at it in the early game as well. It's what we expected coming into the matchup. Xerxes still holding on to that flash. Odo's only a quarter left on the cooldown, so that's ticking away before we'll see that one back up. And maybe Splyce will want to try and make a play around that Summoner spell being down.
I was going to say I'd be surprised if they look to do that because Infernal Drake is up right now, but Splyce have actually decided to just concede this, and I think it comes back to what we were just talking about, where Abadage, because he was able to get back to lane quicker, because he had the teleport, Splyce recognized, you know what, we're not going to be in a position to contest, we don't want to try and fight this, our bot lane, we want to go back to base, we want to spend some of our gold, so for the time being, let's not bother. So maybe we can still see Splyce look for a top lane play, but I would be surprised that they haven't, given that this flash has been unavailable for a while and they haven't tried to take advantage of it.
I mean, it has given Chachi quite a lead in that top lane.
That's
anyway.
true.
You know, he's like 20 CS up. He's leading in terms of getting those turret plates, just chipping away at them. 600 gold ahead in the lane as well. And sitting on 1,500 gold, we'll be wanting to back at some point soon. Has the teleport if any fights do erupt on the rest of the map. But for now, happy just to continually pen Odawamne back.
So we didn't talk much about the Ash Tom Kench.
Yeah, it's because not much has really happened.
No, I understand that, but I think it's really cool to talk about it because we very rarely see Ashes here in Europe. We did see it over in the LCK this morning. It was played by Prey, one of the most famous Ashe players in the history of LoL. And the cool thing about Ashe is that a lot of changes happened to her recently. Papa Smithy was talking about this today, where the volley cooldown gets extremely low, and the amount of pressure that it can provide is very effective, and it actually makes her a very strong laner, but also adds a lot of utility later on into the game. Ashe's true value, though, comes later on when she's got that Enchanted Crystal Arrow and can start looking for picks. And one of the cool things about Ashe Tahm Kench in particular is how you can land that arrow from across the map, and then a Tahm Kench ultimate appears, and sometimes you even bring the Ashe into that lane, and now all of a sudden that arrow that hit you from half a screen away, the deliverer of that arrow now arrives in your face.
I remember seeing that at MSI. SKT did that to Perks pretty darn effectively in that bottom lane. But we'll see if Splyce are able to utilize it to as great effect as the former Korean champions. And the current Korean champions, actually.
Well, meanwhile, Splyce now utilizing the pressure that they have in top and mid to gain a bit of vision control towards top side. Norskaren and Kobe also want to make sure that they secure this Rift Herald, so they're moving up towards mid to keep this pressure there. And I feel like we're kind of posturing for a fight right now. Medic Odawamne, level 9, has the ultimate, has the blasting one. Both these teams, they want this objective.
Don't get my hopes up too soon, Vedius, but Schalke are stepping forward into River now. It's Splyce disengaged from the Rift Herald. It's going to time out, reset. Patience of Herald has run out, and Schalke are able just to reset the fight.
And the crucial thing about that was Ignar had already started walking up, which meant that Ignar was able to maintain priority in mid without the risk of getting picked off by the likes of Kobe or Norskaren, because there was safety around there. So because he had priority mid, he could move up and join both Trick and Odawamne, and then of course you have Upset and Ignar close behind. So Splyce recognized in the moment, if we try and force this fight, it's going to be a numbers disadvantage for us much, much quicker. So we have to disengage, we have to walk away, and that we cannot commit to the objective. So good awareness there from Splyce as Trick flashes in.
Trick flashes in. Chachi pulled underneath the tower, but manages to get away. Uses the proto boat, doesn't have flash anymore. Slicing mouse from stunned up both Odawamne and Trick, and they can't chase. The cannon's too fast. Another stun landing from Chachi. He's not going to die isolated today. Says no to Trick and Oda.
He doesn't want to add that to his list of isolated deaths. Going to get out of that one safe and sound. Beautiful stuff from him. A lot of mobility with the phase rush, with the lightning rush, with as well the proto belt on top of that, and all the CC he has in his kit. A failed gank from the side of Schalke. So for the time being, Splyce sit there with the gold lead. And Splyce looking for a potential play in mid. Oh no.
Oh, did Chachi overstay? Odawamne was waiting in the bush, but Chachi pretty deft at dealing with Odo at the moment. Has the teleport if he wants to go back. Maybe trying to hold on to it because Infernal Dragon is the next dragon on the card, so he wants to be able to join a fight if it does erupt down towards that bottom side. But Splyce in a strong position, 1,000 gold ahead, the AD carry scaling up, has the Blade of the Ruin King, now got a Wit's End on Humanoid. I wonder when we'll start seeing the QSS tax, because Splyce, smarter than me, remembered that Cleanse can't get rid of the Skarner ultimate. I felt like I was working for Riot support for a second.
But it was funny because when you talked about Cleanse, I immediately looked at Schalke's lineup, and they could have done with a Cleanse because 100%. Of the Sejuani and the Ashe ultimate. But they've chosen not to use it. They're relying on Upset Spell Shield to block everything. And of course you have the Braum Shield. So he's going to stand there. He's going to stand behind me. I'll block the CC. It's fine, guys. Very early Merc Treads coming out across the board from the side of Schalke to try and mitigate some of that. As a couple more items come through. But remember, we talked a lot about win conditions, kind of what these teams are looking for. For Splyce, we said they kind of want to look for picks, want to try and catch people on the side lane. Because the map hasn't really opened up yet, it's harder for them to try and utilize that pick power that their composition does have. Meanwhile, for Schalke, there hasn't really been much for them to team fight it over just yet. So they haven't really forced any team fights. As a result, both teams have just kind of played this early game relatively slow. They haven't built any massive leads. But a team fight for Schalke could be starting very, very soon.
Oh, Trick has a good flank position here as well. The Equalizer laid down. Slicing matchup, you're pulling him back into your team! Trick brings the cannon into his team, but manages to survive. A double kill comes out. For a moment, it looked dire, but Schalke come out on top. And now the rest of Splyce need to retreat. They have to get out of this, because this is a 5v3. It's all on Kobe. Upset on the front line. Ignite down. Norscaven takes him out, but Upset opens up and gets the damage in. And now Kobe and Xerxes are stuck in the pit. The flashes come out from Xerxes. Goodbye to Kobe, say Schalke, as they take down 4.
And there was the team fight that we were talking about. It was Splyce that started off the Dragon, but Schalke walk away with the kills. Beautiful stuff coming out from Schalke. They walk away happy. Trick is now 4-0-1 in the early game. That's going to inflate his early game stats a lot. But 1-for-1 in the Infernals right now. Schalke lead in the kills. They've finally taken control over the gold. And now they're starting to reset over the map. They're starting to split members up.
And I think coming into this game for Schalke, you could almost say it was a proving ground for them. They wanted to see if Trick would have an impact against one of these higher tier, the playoff teams from last split. Splyce made 4th, of course, and Schalke weren't even able to make it into playoffs. They lost that tiebreaker to SK. Here, Schalke looking a lot stronger, looking a lot more coordinated than they did in the second half of spring.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that Trick has been a big addition, and I think that it's definitely a time thing for Schalke. They're a team that in the past have shown that they can grow over time, and while last split they started strong and kind of faltered in the second half of the split.
Fell off a cliff.
I think this time around they're slowly climbing their way back up the cliff, Medic, and so far they're doing a great job against Splyce. But this game still very close, still could go either way. Given that towers will start to drop very soon, very likely, as there's the Ashe Arrow being used onto Humanoid.
Humanoid landed a great double stun, but it's not going to be enough to keep him alive. Abbedagge and Trick once again team up and take down the Splyce mid.
Yeah, Trick has definitely been the one that's been coming out ahead in a lot of these early game ganks and been making it work for the side of Schalke. He found that counter gank up towards the top side of the map. He's been playing a lot around Abbedagge. We talked a little bit about it around this could be the lane that he primarily looks to enable, and so far it's been working beautifully. Now that they transferred, sent their bot lane up towards the top lane, they have a numbers advantage. They found a kill in mid and they can quickly convert that into a Rift Herald.
Abbedagge trying to dodge across the wall here as Norscaven goes for the chase. Kobe there as well, but Norscaven's actually going to use the devour. It's very dangerous. The rest of Schalke were just waiting around the corner. Norscaven pops the thick skin, but the chase is on. Xerxes going to try and body block for his AD carries. Kobe on his way back towards the jungle. The Equalizer laid down. Kobe takes a bit of a chunk. Trick still on the chase. Xerxes with the slow. Kobe does it all. He takes out the Skarner, and now it's dangerous for Schalke. Ono tries to turn it around, but he can't do enough. Norscaven finally dies off towards the other side. Chachi comes in with the teleport, and Splyce have turned this one right on his head. They land a gut punch to Schalke as Schalke tried to step forward.
That was such a weird fight, Medic. It started off with Norscaven making a terrible play. He knew that Schalke were on the Rift Herald. He knew that they were in a position to collapse, yet he tries to go for a 1v1 against Abbedagge. I'm not sure how he was hoping this play would turn out, but like, just look at the minimap. You can so clearly see there are more members of Schalke here than there are of Splyce. So it's very difficult for Splyce to be able to come out ahead in this play, but this is where Schalke make the mistake. They commit now, Norscaven just being really obnoxious and almost actually getting out of that fight. But again, beautiful kiting from Zeus and Kobe. Both Sejuani and Ashe utilizing the immense slows in their kit to actually buy time to walk backwards, allow Humanoid to join the fight, Vizichachi to TP in, and Splyce actually end up coming out on top of the fight. So, like, maybe next level mind games from Norskeren. Either way, Splyce, they walk away the happier team. They get a bunch of kills, and now the goal has been equalized once again.
Schalke are playing chess and Splyce are playing teamfight tactics right there. Norskeren is like next leveling that mind game. Good stuff all around. 18 minutes into the game, about 500 gold between these two teams. You have to look at the AD carries whenever you talk about Splyce and Schalke. Already, Runan's Hurricane, Blade of the Ruin King, 2-1-2 hit for Kobiar, all pro from Spring, whereas Upset is just behind. He's only got the Essence Reaver, he's only got the Zed, he's not as powerful right now.
Ooh, the Rift Herald is going to be dropped mid though. Note how in the top lane, Irelia has to go and catch this, and she doesn't have teleport. So with the 4 members mid from Schalke, they can just force their way through. There's no way for Splyce to challenge given the numbers discrepancy, and on top of that, a Rift Herald. Schalke secure themselves the second tower of the game, and now they can make their way towards the third and final one in bot lane.
And it's so good for Schalke as well that we've had 3 Infernal Drakes, because they want to go for these team fights, they want to go for these big 5v5s, and they can kind of pull Splyce into them because they know that Splyce will want to fight around the Inferno. So now with an Inferno spawning soon, with those bot lane towers still up, you expect Schalke to try and make a play.
But look at how much control over the river Schalke have. They're the ones that had priority on that mid tower. They're the ones that were able to move into the river first, and they're actually much happier in this 4v4 setup. What Splyce want to try and do is find a pick right now.
Yeah.
They want to try and land that Ashe arrow onto a target, either chunk a target out or even find a kill, and then convert that into river control. They're looking for it now.
They go in, double stun land, Trick gonna pull out one already, the Equalizer cuts out Norskeren, Kobe trying to base away from this. Here comes the slicing Maelstrom though, and Vizichachi just turns it straight around. 1-for-1 trade, Norskeren forced away, Kobe trying to do what he can. Abadage fighting over against Chachi, but Oda One and Upset are here from the flank, and Schalke will just retreat back towards the river.
Thunder was super effective as Vizichachi rips through Schalke. They're now the ones on the retreat. This started off beautifully for the side of Schalke, but now Splyce are the ones in control. Health bars very low though.
Splyce have no vision around here though. We talked about it. Schalke had the vision control in the river, so Splyce have to face check. They get the midway pushing in, but they can't quite take the tower, and now Splyce have got a couple of these wards in. Schalke will try and deny them.
Here we are. Schalke are the ones to actually start off this objective. Teleports, having a look across the board. Splyce
giving it up.
None. Schalke, they're just healthier. They know that Rumble has TP. Well, I say Rumble has TP. He's there with the team.
He does have TP though, Reddy, so you are technically correct.
Braum was the one that died. He was making his way back. And they're able to keep their mid-tier 1 alive. So ultimately, Schalke walk away.
Very happy.
With the advantage. So let's have a look at this. Splyce tried to force onto the 3 members. The problem is Odoamne's already making his way up through the river, and I think the mistake from Splyce was trying to force a fight without information on where Odoamne was. But they're able to turn it around because, again, Schalke overcommit, thinking that now they can win this fight without respecting the damage output that Vizichachi has on the cannon. Ultimately, those Splyce were the ones that came out with less HP, and now they've caught Ignar.
Oh, that was so pretty. Trick goes in with the Righteous Glory, gets Ignar to jump across, and forces Norskeren to flash into the Baron Pit.
Yeah, so again, I think that was a bit of a misplay there from Norskeren. But also, good stuff from Ignar, able to clear out some of the vision from the Baron and actually walk away to safety. Which means that, again, gold's still very, very close. Schalke are in a great position, though, because remember, they're playing towards these team fights. Baron is now becoming the next big objective. Ooh, we have a nice, cool little replay.
Norskeren blast comes in.
No, I respect that. I think that was pretty good from Norskeren. They wanted to try and catch out the support, and they should have caught him out here. But unfortunately, the Skarner made his way up towards the river, and so he was forced to flash out. Yeah, props to Norskeren. That was pretty good.
Props to Trick as well. He's the guy that carried Schalke through this early game. 4-1-3 now. Righteous Glory complete. Has the best of boots as well. The arrow's going to land onto Abadage. The stun lock, the CC chain with the Glacial Prison, the shutdown. Schalke lose a man. Splyce find a pick.
Exactly what they wanted. Now, they're the ones with the numbers advantage. They can use that time to gain vision control around the river. They can secure the mid-tier 1. Rumble is forced to catch this wave, and I'd actually love to see Splyce now make a play towards the top tier 1. Get some deep vision in the enemy jungle, and secure themselves another objective and a little bit more control around the map.
That's exactly what they're doing, Vedius. It's like you have watched a game of League of Legends before, and Odo Omne and Chachi have played in a few themselves. Chachi trying to get away here from Odo, but Odo still has the flash. Chachi's going to use the proto belt. The equalizer goes down. Chachi pops the slicing Maelstrom, dodging around with a lightning rush. Chachi doesn't run away. The stopwatch, but Upset just needs one Odo. You have to feel 2 is enough. Upset takes the kill. And meanwhile, Splyce are trying to play up towards that top side of the map.
Vizichachi does what he can to buy time, but ultimately this will be a kill going in favor of Schalke, and they trade towers. What it costs them is vision around the topside river, but still, in terms of the gold, they help close the gap. They help maintain the state of play. Still very, very close between the two teams, and remember that for Splyce to play their composition, they need Schalke to be out of position. They need to look for these picks. They need to try and force plays up towards the side lane, whereas Schalke, all they really need to do is group as 5, see enemy grouped as 5, press the R button and go.
Yeah. They've got quite a few R buttons they can just press. So I want to see what ults Abadage decides to steal as well. Glacial Prism, Enchanted Crystal Arrow, Vanguard's Edge, they all work really well.
Yeah, and look at the minimap here. You can see 5 members of Schalke grouped up mid. They're looking for a fight.
Splyce want nothing of that. They're running away as quickly as their legs can carry them. Schalke will use the opportunity to get vision around the Baron, and at some point, Schalke will force. You have to feel that, you set up the Baron, you say, okay, use your teleport. Come join us in a 5v5, because otherwise, we're just going to steal away the objective.
Well, in an ideal world, Splyce are just like, no, we will not fight you. Instead, when you're trying to gain vision, we'll look for a pick. You have to manage these side roads. Oh, speaking of picks.
The arrow comes out. Xerxes there with the chase as well, has the Glacial Prism, but Trick is in the wings, waiting around the corner. Pause yet, doesn't land. The vehicle is in the great spot. The suppression pulling Humanoid back into Schalke, and they say any pick you want, we can do better. The chase continues. Northgaren, instant QSS, gets away. The blast cone used as well, and Chachi's off towards the top side of this fight, but immediately Schalke look up towards Nasha.
So it was Splyce who tried to go for the pick, but they did not commit. They could have just looked to burst Odo Omne down, but again, they recognized Chachi was not in a position to get the follow-up. So that means that in that brief moment of hesitation, Trick is the one that springs the trap. He is the one that dives in with the Righteous Glory, jumps onto Humanoid, drags him back into the Schalke squad, and they find themselves another pick. So now it is Schalke that still maintain control over the river in the top side. And Splyce, they're the team that should be looking for these picks, but so far they've only found one. It was only onto Abadage, and they haven't really found much else outside of that.
But the thing about it is, watching as a bystander, Schalke there, you get a pick, you get a kill, you're still 500 gold behind, you lose your vision control around the Baron anyway because Xerxes steps in here. It feels like they didn't really get too much out of that apart from 300 gold.
But see, this is the fun thing about League of Legends. It might not seem like they got a lot out of it, but you got to remember the importance of vision here, Medic, and how, because Schalke got vision first, they then go back to base, Splyce then clear out that vision, and notice how they're resetting on the map. This means that Schalke have all the time in the world to set that vision back up again, and they're the ones in control. And because they've just based, they've spent all this money, they can keep control over that objective, and Splyce will be forced to walk into fog of war because they haven't been able to ascertain any vision in that area.
And let's see how much vision they get. Chachi has a perfect flank ward here if he wants it. He's now down towards the bottom lane as he was pushing it up. Schalke do know he's in the area. Splyce going to push forward. They're the ones stepping into the river now, but for the moment, both teams happy with the status quo around that river. Splyce will try and get the wave pushed up mid, but Ignar does have a flank here. The On The Hunt used, the Enchanted Crystal Arrow only connects onto Northgaren. He has QSS. Teleport coming in here from Chachi as well. It's going to be a 5v5 in the mid lane, and Chachi is in the perfect position to open up with a Maelstrom of Death. Splyce just turned this fight right around on Schalke. Schalke wanted the team fight, and Abadage maybe has done enough on the backline. Oh my goodness! Abadage with the double. It looked like Splyce had it, but Schalke somehow find the fight.
Abadage comes up clutch in that fight to help turn it around for Schalke. He finds the execute onto Kobe. He kills the primary damage dealer, and while Vizichachi made it look good, it was not good enough. Now Schalke, they've started off the Baron. Xerxes full health, lying in wait. If he gets the steal, Splyce still stand a chance.
Ward goes in, control ward, but there's still 9,000 HP on that. Look how low all of Schalke are. Trick needs to tank this. Can they do it with Xerxes waiting? They decide to back away. The right call you have to feel. Schalke know they can win the next team fight as well.
Close stuff coming out from both these teams. I thought I was going to have to eat my words with the whole team fighting versus pick thing, but here we see the thing starting off. Ashe gets locked down, but then a good clutch save comes out from Norskeren. This ultimate from Vizichachi melts through the backline. Meanwhile, Odo is just sitting on the front line. He ends up dropping. And when he's gone, a lot of the ultimates and a lot of the damage is now turned around. But look at Abadage. Dives in with all the AoE from all of his abilities, on top of the fact that he had the Proto Belt. Enables him to just melt through the entire Splyce squad. Now they're the ones fighting another fight.
Another fight happens in the mid lane as Humanoid falls first. Chachi not here, doesn't have the teleport, and Schalke can continue to push forward. 1,000 gold ahead now. Will they look for the tower, or will they go towards that mountain? The dragon seems to be a little bit more tasty for them, so that's where they'll head.
Yeah, they don't want to run the risk of going for a Baron right now. 4 members of Splyce still alive. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow for Kobe is still up. And this doesn't do anywhere near as much damage or offer anywhere near as much threat as a Baron does. So Schalke are going to take the easier objective for the time being. And they're going to feel very comfortable. But again, props to Abadage. This guy, last split, like, I mean, let's not beat around the bush. He was terrible.
He died a lot. He died a lot
and was a big detriment. But now, like, he steals away the Sejuani ultimate. He finds that hit onto Humanoid, and that very quickly is converted into a kill. And like the growth that this young rookie of last split has made is a large part of why we're seeing so much more development from Schalke right now over these last 2 weeks. Hopefully he can maintain it. Currently 4-1 and 7. And then of course you've got the consistent, reliable damage dealer in Upset behind 6, 0, and 3 on the Sivir right now. 3 items completed. There's the QSS as well if the Spell Shield wasn't already enough. This team is now that much harder to teamfight, especially with the double Zhonya. So Schalke now feeling very confident in their setup of the Baron. They've got top pushed in. They're maintaining mid control. But notice how, again, Splyce sending 5 mid to force Schalke back and maybe look for a pick.
Odo only pops the stopwatch. The arrow's going to land just in time, and Odo still flashing away, still surviving. The Equalizer comes out, but they can't quite find the kill. There's a lot burnt to try and hatch out the Rumble, but they can't quite do it. Abadage has a flank position here, but as we highlighted the Schalke mid laner, I want to also look at the Splyce mid laner. 163 Humanoid, only finished a Wit End, doesn't even have his second completed item yet, whereas you're looking at 3 on the side of Abadage.
And you'd have to think that one of these items should have been a QSS because he has been the target for every single fight. He's getting locked down, shut out, and is having little to no impact. That is making it harder for Splyce to convert these picks into game-winning plays. Now Schalke once again grouping up as 5 in the mid lane. Humanoid not there with them, meaning Splyce is forced to concede. They're going to lose control over the river once again. And Schalke feeling very comfortable about the state of the map right now.
Should be very happy if you're in this situation. 3 items on your Sivir, only scaling up further. Kobe struggling to have an impact in teamfights because he's the one getting locked down. He's the one being caught out by Trick, who consistently finds the backline. Good dodge there from Vizichachi as he uses the Proto Belt just to escape the enemy arrow that was stolen away. But Splyce, they're stepping into darkness, they're stepping into no vision. I'm sure as we see the toggles come through in this fight, we'll see that Splyce really have no awareness of what is going on around that Baron. Glacial Prism misses, the stun's going to land onto Ignar, but still, it's just chip damage, and the ultimates from Splyce are not finding their marks.
No, they are not, but notice how Splyce have actually forced Schalke back. And even though they had no vision of the river, they had some good wards in the enemy jungle of Schalke, which gave them enough insight to throw these ultimates out, look for potential picks. So far, it hasn't really converted into anything. So both teams just kind of posturing right now around this Baron area. The game definitely slowed down.
Oh, great stopwatch.
Now, Schalke is the first to return to the map, but if we have a look at their inventory, there's only 1 control ward on Odo Omne. So Splyce is the one that's actually in a better position right now because they've just reset. They've just spent a lot of their gold. They've restocked their inventory, and so now, even though Schalke have initial control over the Baron, it's easy for Splyce to just return to that area of the map because they have all of this extra vision, and Schalke will be forced to concede and back away because everyone has just gone back to base and they're clearing out some of these waves.
This is Xerxes and Norskeren's Vision Emporium that they have at the moment with the control wards and the double sweepers. You can see how much Trick has done in terms of denying enemy vision as well, though. Vision score of 84 on that. Skarner consistently finding ways to flank and ways to deny any awareness for Splyce. And Splyce trying to play these side lanes a little bit. We've seen teams get forced and sucked into these 5v5s and lose experience because of it. You can see that starting to have an effect here. Abadage level 16, Humanoid only 14, Odo 16, Chachi just pinged over to 16 as well. So if you're Splyce, you want to be picking up as many of these side waves as possible to try and keep up with that XP.
Well, they definitely would like to. Also, you want to try and avoid dying anymore, because
that's a good idea.
Splyce, or Humanoid in particular, is in this position. I think both AD carries are still in really good spots. Right now, in terms of damage output, I would definitely give the edge to Upset. Remember, he does all that AoE, on top of the fact that he's not forced to build a Hex Drinker, whereas Kobe, he feels the need to get that extra bit of magic resistance in there going up against a double AP. Thought Vizichachi was looking for a flank, and then I remembered that he's the blue side, and that was his part of the map. So he's just actually going to return to his safety of his jungle, and he's going to go back to base and spend some of his gold, hopefully pick up a couple more control wards. But the game is kind of stagnated right now. I was expecting a little bit more from both these teams. I felt like that they've been in better positions to set up vision and actually force plays, but now the game is really slowing down, and like it kind of reminds me of the Splyce of last split, where they struggle to know what to do, and I can't blame them when they know that they won't win team fights, and Humanoid is in this position where he can't really threaten on a side lane. But we haven't seen much utilization of the Ash Arrow into Tahm Kench ultimate. We haven't seen them trying to catch targets out when they're clearing out these side waves, and I think that Splyce is kind of struggling to know what the next best step is.
And I think if you're Schalke, there's a big argument just to take this Cloud Drake off the map, get an Elder spawning relatively soon, and then you can pull Splyce in multiple directions as well. You have such a big buff if you have 4 Dragon Elder and the Baron on the other side that you can try and take away. It means you can make more of these team fights happen, and you've seen in the last few fights, Schalke are coming out on top of those team fights.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're Schalke right now, you should be forcing the Baron a lot more. They haven't really pushed their vision that much deeper. It's pretty much solely remained around the Baron, and if you're going to do that, then you want to try and force Splyce to face check, but they haven't successfully been able to do that because they keep sending someone off to a side to catch a wave, and then Splyce group up as 5, and then they force Schalke back off, and then all of a sudden they don't have control anymore. So I just kind of want to see these teams actually force something right now. Here we are. There are 5 members around the Baron. This is what I want to see. Schalke now forcing.
Okay, so the Scuttle Crab is in favor of Splyce. They have some vision here. Chachi waiting to see if he can find the teleport position as Baron goes down to 8,000. There's the TP behind, the jump in. The arrow's going to land, but it only hits onto Ignar. Now Trick is put in Xerxes off the back of the fight. Chachi's on the wrong side of this. Already Humanoid is down, and Chachi can't even join the fight in time. Norskeren trying to get away, but Kobe just doesn't have the damage. Schalke continue to push forward. Here comes Chachi! Slice them up! Dice them up! Feed them to your team! Chachi coming up in the vital moment for Splyce.
That was unbelievable from Vizichachi. The initial play looked so promising for Schalke. They knew that they did not have clear vision control around Baron, so instead they said, let's just turn and fight. Let's instead try and force them into a numbers disadvantage, and then it is easier for us to actually force the Baron. They find that initial pick. They find that initial fight, but they kill Humanoid. Who they do not take out is Vizichachi, and he comes up clutch. Such a huge flash ultimate to come out from him and just melt through the health bars of Schalke. And now it is Splyce that are in the driver's seat. They're the ones that are in control, and they're the ones that can start threatening Schalke in their base.
That came out of nowhere. This Alienware big play replay brought to you by anyone
so
again,
Chachi. I love this turn from Schalke. I think it's really smart. Chachi not in the fight yet. They know the teleport is delayed. I like the planning here from the side of Schalke, but a lot of ultimates have been used. Then Chachi comes out from the fog of war. Look at that. Hits all 5 members. And he just obliterates their health bar. That is the power of AP Cannon. Oh, that was exquisite tour. Excellent cannon ult.
He's now 3,000 gold ahead of Oda1 as well. He's sitting at 13k. AD carry's pretty even. Mid lane actually pretty even as well, perhaps surprisingly, after Abadage had such a good start.
And you know what? Like, you can say what you want about Vizichachi. The man dies a lot isolated, right? But his Poppy performance last week, his cannon performance this game, he is a clutch playmaker, and he can sometimes turn a game in seconds. Yep. I remember his Gnar when he played up against TSM on Unicorns of Love, like some of the Gnar ultimates that he would make to save games, to turn games in his favor. Like, this guy is a clutch player. And sometimes the good comes with the bad, but right now it is all but good for the side of Vizichachi. This guy is having an amazing game. Let's see if he can help his team break into the base of Schalke, which right now, with a lot of wave flare and a lot of stall, is sitting in an actually very comfortable position.
So Splyce will be the team to take the final normal dragon of the game, the final elemental. Elder will spawn in 5 minutes time. Splyce have been unable really to push this Baron any further than just a couple of, just a fight and then the Baron afterwards. We'll be looking for those towers, but as you say, there's so much wave clear on the side of Schalke, it's pretty difficult. They do have a 4,000 gold lead now. The question is how much that really matters. You know, we're 37 minutes into the game, 4,000 gold isn't actually that much, and unless you see a big flank from Chachi, unless you see a big pick from Humanoid or from Xerxes, or even from the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, Schalke still have a very strong teamfight composition and they can hold on to their base.
Yeah, and ultimately, I feel like this game is going to come down to Chachi versus Upset.
Upset? Oh.
I mean, because, like, look, 7-0-3, he's yet to die, right?
It's true.
And he's, like, the main damage dealer once all of the ultimates are gone.
It's true.
But what we've actually seen is Schalke, like, spend 4, sometimes 5 ultimates to get a single or maybe 2 kills. And then the Chachi ultimate comes around and then actually turns it around. So, like, I think these team fights can... There's a lot of room for error in these fights. And I feel like the execution is going to be a large part of ultimately how this game is decided. Yeah. And there's a sidestep. Abadage feeling pretty cool about that one. But yeah, I feel like no longer can we really talk about, like, pick comps versus teamfight comps, like, because like we're getting to the point in the game where standard League of Legends doesn't apply anymore, and now it's all about execution. Who plays better in the moment? Are you able to kill that carry? Can you find that successful flank? Does your ultimate hit 5 people, or does it whiff?
Yep.
Like, we're kind of at that stage of play, and the problem for Schalke is they're going up against Splyce, who last bit built up a reputation of being pretty good in those situations.
Pretty good in the teamfights, pretty good in the late game as well. Kobe, I mean, there's a reason he was the top of our AD carry standings at the end of the split, but Upset on Perks' list at the moment sits top, excluding Perks, of course. So the battle of the AD carries, the battle of Chachi, and Odawame will continue. The war of Summoner's Rift rages on, Vedius.
I think both teams are now just waiting for the next big objective to spawn. Elder, not alive yet. Baron, likely going to be spawning very soon. They've actually moved the Irelia off onto a side lane. Oh, they've gone for a bit of a... Sent 2 people top, 3 people mid. They wanted to try and keep some mid-wave pressure, and they also wanted to keep Humanoid alive. And because Schalke had actually gone for more of a... they sent 1 person top, 1 person mid, 1 person bot, while 2 actually reset. That's actually allowed Splyce to secure another objective. So I think a bit of coordination was mismanaged there from the side of Schalke, and also a good play from Splyce to see a window where they can get an advantage.
Yeah, Chachi's now gone down towards the bottom lane, which we saw Upset push in. His teleport isn't up, but nor are any of those big objectives, so it doesn't actually matter that much that he couldn't join a fight at a moment's notice, because Splyce can just step back and say, well, we don't have a reason to fight you right now.
So you've also got Humanoid making his way towards the bot side of the map. There's nothing for him to take top lane, and he can't farm anything mid. So he's actually just going to pick up these jungle camps towards the bot side. And again, we're seeing
how many pings come in mid there. As soon as they saw Humanoid, they pinged, assist me, let's try and get push. Let's try and make a play towards that mid lane, because we know there are 2 members of Splyce down towards the bottom side of the map. Nothing happened. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're fine.
It was very exciting to me in the moment.
It was a good point. Good awareness there from Splyce. Ooh, Abadage.
Xerxes jumping in. Dodge away from Abadage. You don't really want to use the Glacier Prison that deep. With the minion wave pushing in, you can see Odawame having to catch that.
I actually think the bigger scare from the side of Splyce there was that because even though Odawame was underneath his tower on the minion wave, he was so close to Abadage, and there were 3 members just sitting in the mid river, whereas Noskaran and Kobe were like closer to the bot river. So if Splyce tried to force a fight, again, it's all about numbers in League of Legends, you know?
Quick math.
If there are 5 people versus 3 people, well, usually the 5 people win. So yeah, so Splyce just wanted to avoid that.
I mean, it makes sense. An equalizer in a narrow jungle pathway can cause a great deal of hurt. Now, both AD carries fully built. It appears GA's complete on either side. Trick going to take some damage. The stun's going to land. There's the Enchanted Crystal Arrow as well. Not going down half. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow coming back from Schalke. It's a back and forth. Jabs landing from either side as Upset jumps forward. Humanoid is dead. And Upset is legendary. The slicing maelstrom comes out, but Upset just standing to the side of it. The AD carry from Schalke in the perfect position. And now Schalke take down 2 and can push mid.
And we talked about how this game was going to be a battle between Upset and Vizichachi, and while Splyce had the initial pick, it was Schalke that delivered the final blow. Upset flashes in to kill Humanoid, immediately creates a numbers advantage that gives the confidence for Trick to go in, lock down Vizichachi, no QSS on him. They find the kill, they find the Baron. Now they're the ones, even though at a gold deficit, are in a better position for the game moving forward.
What watch Upset here. Look at how aggressively he positions. Perk says there aren't good players or bad players. There aren't aggressive players or defensive. There's just good or bad. Upset is a good player here, flashing forward to get the kill on Humanoid.
And you can see here, Vizichachi was just kind of left on the back end as the rest of the team tried to retreat. He gets locked down by Trick. They're now going to convert it into the Elder Drake as well. And Schalke, they're in a great position right now. They have 3 Drakes. They're going to be empowered by the Elder. They're going to have that extra burn as well. 8-0 and 4 Upset right now.
That is a scary, scary mountain to climb if you're looking at it as Splyce. And we'll see if they can do it, because they've pulled rabbits out of hats already this game. A lot of it on the back of Chachi finding a opportune moment to strike. He has his flash back up now, has the Protobelt, has the Zhonyas, can get onto that back line, but with Upset having a GA, with all of that safety, you wonder if Schalke are going to fall to that trick once again.
Let's have a look. Schalke rather, setting up a 4 people in the mid lane, 1 person in the bot lane. They know that Abadagi is very strong isolated, so what they'll likely do is push in mid and then play towards the bot side, create a numbers advantage down towards bot, where Splyce will struggle to answer. Meanwhile, Splyce have actually kept all 5 members in mid lane. They want to try and answer this 4-man push, which, to be honest, they need all 5 members because of the Elder as well. It just makes Schalke so much stronger. The gold really doesn't matter anymore at this point in the game. Items are pretty much completed across the board. Levels are kind of reaching max. Now it's just a matter of how cleanly can Schalke break into the base.
And they struggled a bit in the mid game to solidify their advantage over Splyce. They have found the fights they needed to do it now with waves pushing in mid. You can see Trick trying to bring a wave down here towards the bottom side, but it looks like it's all going to be focused bot because the next wave in mid is a long way away. All of Schalke coming down here, and it will once again be a 5v5 in this bottom lane.
Are they going to dive? Maybe they just use the ultimate, Rumble ultimate to try and zone Splyce away from the tower. If they can just get the... Here it is.
There we are. Perfect zoning. Glacial Prison comes out as well. They're just looking for the inhibitor tower. Humanoid trying to be on that front line, but can't find the connection with the flawless duet. Schalke going for the inhib now as well. Upset just getting the damage in as he can. This flank coming out from Chachi. This is the moment. This is the opportunity. The Glacial Prism lands, but Chachi just about getting into the stopwatch in time. Trick and Abadagi forced away. Trick flashes over the wall and already 1 dead for Splyce. Schalke can step forward. A 5v4. The maths is in their favor and the inhibitor's their target.
I could see what Splyce tried to do. That was that last-ditch effort, but unfortunately it was not enough. Schalke with the good disengage. They find the pick. They go for the end.
The final fight you have to feel. It's all on Kobe to get the damage in, but he just can't get close enough to Schalke. They force back Splyce once again. Now Kobe stepping forward. Abadagi trying to dodge around as much as he can. The Nexus towers are fallen, and the Nexus could just be Schalke's target. Humanoid trying to turn it around. They get 2, but look at how low Kobe is. He's devoured. Norscaven's going to spit him out. Just take the Nexus, Schalke. They may have thrown it in the final moments. It's on Upset. Uses the shield. Is in the GA.
That's a triple.
Schalke could have just taken the Nexus, and Upset will do it in the end. Schalke takes Splyce to the late game, and in the end, they take the win.
Kobe gets a quadra kill, nearly secures a penta, but it is not enough to stop Upset from ending the game. The perfect KDA was ruined by the side of Kobe. 9-1-5 was Upset's final score. That was almost one of the